There's going to be a big investigation now, as there should be, because you had so many enablers there. The press people, Jen Psaki, who doesn't like some of what's come out, saying it's being exaggerated. I mean, KJP, Anthony Blinken. Oh, what about the wifey? Right? What about Lady Macbeth? She sort of seemed that way. Remember after the debate? The debate that was the tragedy that sealed his fate. He was awful. And she got up on stage and said this.
Joe, you did such a great job. You answered every question. You knew all the facts. And let me ask the crowd, what did Trump do? Lied! Yes.
So I have a feeling that Jill Biden and Hunter Biden may come into the view here, along with all the members of the administration that were constantly covering this one up. And it was a cover-up. I mean, Jake Tapper participated in the cover-up. That's the irony, right? He's the guy writing the book, but fine, like let him write the book, because it probably wouldn't have had the same weight coming from a conservative. You probably needed to have a liberal come out and say all this in order for people to really take it seriously enough. And he has said now on record on Piers Morgan's show that this is worse than Watergate. I mean, a cover-up worse than Watergate. That's what was going on in the White House. I'm telling you, heads are going to roll. And pardons are going to become null and void. Watch Jake.
This brings me to your conclusion, which said Joe Biden is not Richard Nixon, and the hiding and the cover-up of his deterioration is not Watergate. I'm not entirely sure I agree, Jake, with that conclusion. Yeah,
well,
I'm not entirely sure.
The next line is it is an entirely separate scandal. It is a scandal.
Yes.
It is without question, and maybe even worse than Watergate in some ways.
Right.
Because Richard Nixon was in control of his faculties when he wasn't drinking, and the idea that we don't mean to exonerate. The only reason that we have the Watergate thing is there because we quote Archibald Cox, who was a Watergate investigator, talking about how powerful the presidency is and how presidents get surrounded by people who have a vested interest in keeping that president propped up. So that's the only reason we invoke Watergate, is just to make clear, like, it's not Watergate. Right. This is an entirely separate scandal. Maybe even worse. Maybe even worse.
Yeah, I think arguably it is worse, actually.
Yeah. Worse. Okay? Worse. Worse in that you had somebody in office, and I'm going to show you my favorite tape here. He's clearly struggling. He says, I shouldn't be allowing you to ask questions.
I'll get in trouble.
I'll get in trouble. Like, what do you mean you'll get in trouble? And look at his face.
Super Tuesday said, do you have a message for voters? Thanks, come on.
This is a man that is struggling. As these reporters shout out questions to him, he looks like he's ready to pass out. He's just staring into the camera. I mean, we could play these things all day long, right? We won't, but we could. And the point is, the reason this is worse than Watergate is because you had a guy in there who wasn't capable of doing the job that everybody just kept propping up and wasn't even doing the job. What do you think the auto pen was? Hundreds and hundreds of auto pen signatures. Well, now that's all going to come up for debate. So we got to figure out who was enabling him. We got to figure out how the heck it is that a doctor, I mean, the guy should have the best medical care in the world, right? He's the president of the United States. Any which way he slices, is not looking good. One, he has a doctor that either lied and didn't tell America the truth, or two, he's getting pretty, excuse my French, crappy medical care. Okay? Like, it's one of the two. Either way, not good. Not good for America that you have somebody who can't actually do the job, and America doesn't know who the heck is the auto pen or who the heck they actually elected. We need to get to the bottom of this, and you know what? We will. Believe me, this is going to become the biggest scandal. Watch, James Comer's already on it.
They just talked to Joe Biden, and he was tip-top. He was in great physical condition. He was at the top of his game. Now they're coming back covering the track saying, yeah, it looks like he was in mental decline. Well, we all know he's in mental decline. What we need to know is who was calling the shots at the White House. And one thing that was also mentioned on your show thus far is that when you sign a document that has legal implications, it has to be signed personally. It can't be signed by an auto pen. You use auto pen for proclamations and mass letters and things like that. So I think that if we can understand more about the auto pen and whether or not Joe Biden authorized it, I think this could lead to a lot of those executive orders being kicked out in court.
All right. And when do you expect these subpoenas to go out?
Well, the letters have already gone out to the staffers as well as Dr. O'Connor. So if we don't hear anything from them in a week, then I would expect to start seeing subpoenas.
And if they fight the subpoena, what do you do?
We'll go to court. Jesse, they're going to try to plead executive privilege, and they're lawyering up, and we're ready. That's why we're making sure every I's dotted and every T's crossed. The best thing that's happened in the last week with respect to this is all the new books that are coming out and all the former Biden staffers who are trying to cover their tracks. You're going to see people like Pete Buttigieg who think they have political futures come forward and say, we didn't know anything. There were gatekeepers. They wouldn't let us speak with Joe Biden. And the more that comes out, the easier it's going to be to get to the truth.
You better believe it. Like, that's what I'm saying. So while it's sort of funny that Jake Tapper's the one doing the book because he was part of the cover-up, in a way it's kind of good, because if it were, say, a conservative writing that book, they would not take it as seriously. So this just opens the floodgates, you guys, for the Republicans to say what went down. And how do we make sure that that never, ever, ever actually happens again? Right? And DOJ's really busy. They got a case in Chicago I want to tell you about. One of my former colleagues at Fox, Harmeet Dillon, who is now actually running the Civil Rights Division. She's in charge of this, and wow, like she's going to blow it up. But before I get to that, I just wanted to mention gold down today. We've been talking, of course, about the markets being up. We're looking at tremendous, tremendous upside right now in the markets, but not the case actually for gold. So you know what I did? I bought some. All right, so that's what I do. When things are lower, it's down about 2%. So I went and I bought a little bit more because I'm a long-term believer in gold and I want to have it, right, for the long term. If you're interested in buying gold, one of our show sponsors, great guys over at American Heart for Gold, I encourage you to give them a ring, 1-844-495-1115. You can text Trish to 65532. You can get up to $15,000 worth of free silver, which is a very interesting, trades differently, but often in line with what you see on gold. TrishLovesGold.com. How can you forget that, right? Just go over to TrishLovesGold.com so that you can sign up for the special offer. Like I said, I actually personally bought some today. I didn't buy into the equity markets. I did last week when we were lower, but again, I'll go back to the clearance story, right? My dad, when we were little kids, we shopped at Marshall's and he would say, go to the clearance rack because that's the best brand. Like, it stuck with me my whole life. I really thought it was a brand. So hence, when the markets are higher, I tend to back off a little bit. But gold is lower today, so I bought some. I encourage you to take a look at gold. Lots of good reasons to be in gold for the long haul. But this is a major development. I think that they're going to find there's a lot of there, and it's a cover-up that was massive, and it is worse than Watergate, if you can imagine, right? If you can imagine. But let me go back to Harmeet, because I think this is a pretty big deal that you should know about.